Hello again, YouTubers. Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm your host, the Board Game Captain, and today I'm going to be reviewing and showing you how to play Dreamwell. Now, Dreamwell was put out by Action Phase Games, and it is a game designed by Nick Little, and it features the art of Tara McPherson. You can see all that right there on the box. Now, this particular copy of Dreamwell I purchased while at Gen Con this year. This is one of my new con purchases. I've played it about half a dozen times, and I'm very ready to review it. Now, I'm not too familiar with Nick Little. I know he did another game for Action Phase Games called Heroes Wanted, but I haven't played that particular game yet. And I've never seen any of the artwork of Tara McPherson before, so this is my first introduction to both the game design and the artist. The art is very interesting, and I like it a lot myself. Here's again another look at the cover artwork, and if I pull off the slipcase here, because we actually are given a second bit of cover artwork, for me this artwork kind of feels like a cross between Tim Burton and some old school animes that I'm very fond of. So I quite like it. It's got a cartoony quality to it. It can be a little bit deceptive for the game, though, because while you might look at this and think that it's a kid's game, it's really a bit more advanced than that, especially in the more advanced mode. This game has 3 different modes for play. Now, the game is listed as a 45-minute game for ages 14 and up and 2 to 4 players. I've been predominantly playing it at 2 players, and I do want to point out that this game plays quite well with 2 players. It's not one of those that just says there's a 2-player mode to try to sell more copies. It really does play very well with 2 players, as well as 3 or 4. And the 45 minutes, for me, feels more like a good estimate for the 3 or 4 players, whereas with 2 players, it's really more like about half an hour. It's a bit of a quicker game with 2 players. The 14 and up is a good estimate for the advanced mode. The advanced mode it's not that it's super complicated, but it has a lot to keep track of, a lot of different things that you have to keep right in your head. And the 14 up is a good estimate for that, but they do have a basic mode as well as the Nightmare variant. There's 3 different modes in this game, and I love it. If you watch some of my other reviews, you know I love it when game designers and game companies include multiple ways to play their games. It really ups the replayability quite a bit. I mean, you could play for ages playing the basic version and then decide you want to try the advanced, and then months down the road be like, oh, wasn't there a variant in the rules there? And go back and check it out, and I love when they do that. So this is a good example of that with the 3 different modes of play, especially since the 3rd mode of play can be combined with either of the other 2 modes, which of course increases the variety exponentially there. So, like I said, the 14 and up is really for the advanced mode and the Nightmare mode. The basic mode without the Nightmare variant added in, just the very basic mode, you can knock a few years off that. I think a 12-year-old or a rather advanced 10-year-old would get the basic mode of play fine. Also, it's a really good mode to start with to introduce the basics of the game mechanics and how the game works to players who are new to it, as a bit of a stepping stone or training wheels leading up to using the advanced mode and maybe trying out the Nightmare variant. So again, if you're playing with kids or you're playing with brand new players, don't worry, the nice basic mode is a great way to introduce them to it, whereas with the more advanced people you play with, you could play the advanced mode. And the advanced mode is quite deep, actually. It has a fair amount to sink your teeth into. So I'm going to open up the box here, and let's have a look at some of the components, everything that this game comes with. So now this game came with this nice little bit of frameable artwork here, which I love it when designers are generous. I mean, this is just the game company being generous to us, the consumers. And I'm a big fan of putting up game-related or fantasy and sci-fi artwork down in my game room. So this one's going to get framed and put on the wall and join them. It doesn't quite 100% go with the zombies and undead gunslingers and magical creatures that are on the wall down there, but I don't care. My walls in my game room are a mishmash from all different styles, and I like this style, so it's going up there. Next we have, of course, the rule book, and the rule book has a handy little cheat sheet on the back of it, but the same cheat sheet is printed on some cards for each of the players. So that basically just gives you an extra cheat sheet, if you will. Now, the game board in Dreamwell is made of tiles, so it's different every time, and the game has a board manipulation mechanic, both in the basic and the advanced version, though the advanced version allows you to manipulate it even further. So the no two games are ever the same. Now you've got, these are the tiles for the board. Now I should tell you that the game is a bit of a different take on set collection, because it's not really about collecting the items in the set and holding on to them. What you do is you have two pieces and you move them around the board, and you have to sit on the three things in the set that you're going to need to play a card, and I'm going to go into all of that in a little bit when I show you how to play the game. So first, let's have a look at what the tiles actually look like. Now here we have one of the dream creatures. You have a dream creature and you have a terrain, which is the background there. So this, in this case, you have this purple lightning nighttime background, and you have this three-eyed troll cat thing. There we have a flying rabbit. Here we have a, whoops, let me turn it the right way, a black swan and a black blobby thing there. I like that creature. It's really cool looking. Here we have a white skullflower, and then this creature is kind of like a cat bear creature with a melty heart on his chest. And then we've got a pink whale, as well as a pink elephant who seems to have his heart in his pocket. So there we go. That's a gist of what the tiles for the game board look like. Now they all have those particular creatures that I just showed you, but the backgrounds vary. So you have pink elephants on all of those different backgrounds that you saw through those. Then you've got, this is a lovely little first player token. The first player token is important because everyone always gets a full set of turns, the same number of turns as everyone else. So you mark the first player token to know who the last player is going to be, because when someone triggers the final round, if some people haven't gotten the same number of turns as everyone else, they still get a turn. Now these are some plastic standees. These are to hold up your game pieces on the board. The basic, you know, I mean, if you've played a lot of games, you've seen these before. Basic little tension plastic standees that you put the cardboard pieces in. And the cardboard pieces come in a variety of colors for the 4 different possible players. You've got, each set of pieces comes with 2 of the standees. Now these are for the gray player. You get his 2 standees. These you get to move around the board, and you get one of these handy little markers that you put right in front of yourself. And you put this there to remind yourself and everyone else what color you are, which I think this is a great idea, and I wish more games did this. There are some newer games that do it, because how often have you been playing a game and you look across at player markers on a board, and you're like, okay, who's green? And you don't remember, and you have to ask and stop the game again. Or how often are you going to attack someone and you're like, ha, I'm going to attack you, and they're like, oh, that's not me, I'm red, that's him. You know, whoops. That happens quite a bit, but with this, it's very easy to tell. You just look at each player, and he or she has this right in front of them, and you immediately know what color they are. So in this case, that would be gray. And then we've got the blue player pieces. We've got the green player pieces. Some green. And we've got these ones that are kind of reddish pink. So the red pink player. Kind of red along the outside, but pink on the inside. So then this is the nightmare piece. Now this is for a specific variant of the game. So this is not used in the regular basic version or the regular advanced version, but is used in the nightmare variant. Gets its own standee and moves around the board. And I'll tell you about that in a little bit when I'm telling you how to play the different versions of the game. Then we've got the cheat sheets. Now, these are both sides of the cheat sheets. And the cheat sheets are very handy for the advanced version because they show you, depending on what kind of creature you're looking at and what kind of terrain you're looking at, what kind of terrain and what creature is on the other side of the tile. Now, in the basic version, these are not needed really because, except for the actions, the player actions that you can do, which are listed there. That's really all you need on these. But in the basic version, your board manipulation is restricted to turning tiles. Whereas in the advanced version, you can both turn tiles and flip them, which gets quite a bit more advanced, and it's very helpful to keep track of what's on the other side of each tile you're looking at with the sheet, because you can pick this up and be looking at it and go, okay, alright, so that one's got a black swan on it, so on the other side it has a black blobby thing, and it's got that kind of terrain on it, so on the other side it's got that nighttime sky thing. Okay, do I need that? Yes, I do. Okay, I'm going to flip it. These are great. Very necessary for the advanced version. And the last bit of components before the box is empty there is the deck of cards. Now here is the back of the deck of cards, and the cards are very important. They are how you score, they are what you are playing for, and they are the main part of the theme. The theme of this game is that you are a child searching the Dreamwell for your friends. Some of your friends have been lost in the Dreamwell, and you have to collect sets on the board with your 2 playing pieces in order to play the cards from your hand that are your friends. You play them face down, face up in front of you and collect them, and they earn you points. So there are cards with white borders and black borders, and the reason is that the black border ones are for the advanced version only. The cards are pretty easy to read. Let me show you what they look like. So here we have one of the friend cards. In the middle you see a picture of your friend, and that's important because sometimes it counts for other types of cards for helping them earn their points. Now the set you need to collect for this card is shown up here. You have 2 dream creatures shown there. You have that cat bear thing with the melty heart on his chest. You have the little 3-eyed cat troll creature. And then you have that interesting swirly yellowish greenish background. Now what you need to do to collect this set is you have to have your pieces on the board on each of those creatures, and one of those creatures has to have that correct background to be able to have the complete set. Once you do, as an action, you can play this card, and then the card has 2 more things down here which you need to keep track of. One is this is how you earn your points for the card. In this case, this card gives you 2 points for each of this other kind of friend that you have also collected during the game. And then over here there's a special ability which only takes effect if it's the most recent card you've played, because when you put them down there, like if this was your first one you played, you then put the next one half covering it, so that only the most recent special ability here it is, the most recent special ability will be showing and therefore count. In this case, this one says located and shows a picture of that blue ocean background, and the reason is, what that means is, for the next card you play, if that blue ocean terrain is required, you count as having it even if one of your pieces is not on it, which is very useful. You can use abilities like that to set yourself up for a chain of playing cards where it's easier to play the next one because you've got a card already out that's gonna give you one of the part of the set that you need. So that's a look at all of the components from Dreamwell. Good quality components, cardboard and card, plastic. And let's now go down to the table and I will show you how to play the basic version of Dreamwell. Then I will tell you the couple of things that you need to change to play the advanced version, and I'll tell you what's involved for the Nightmare variant. Once we're done down there, we're going to come back here. I'm going to tell you my thoughts and feelings on the game. I'm going to review it and rate it. We're going to get a second opinion from Lynn, and that'll be it. So I'll see you back here in a few minutes. Okay, so here we see a game of Dreamwell set up for the basic version of play. The first thing you need to do is you put all of the tiles on the board and you put them with the basic side up, which basic side up has this little white outline along it with the white stars on it. If you look at the other side, it has a black outline with black stars on it. That is only used in the advanced mode, which I'll go over the differences between the basic and advanced after I explain how you play the basic mode. So you put them all in the middle, everybody mixes them up real quick, and then everybody together makes a 4x4 grid, and that is going to be your board for the game. You randomize not only where the tiles are, but which way they are facing. Now, each player chooses a color. In this case, we're playing a 2-player game with the red player and the green player. As you can see, their pieces there. And then each player is dealt 2 random cards from the top of the deck. The deck is placed at the corner of the board, and 4 face-up cards are dealt out to the display. The player who slept the longest last night gets to go first. In this case, that'll be the red player. Now, on the red player's turn, they have 5 actions in the basic mode that they are capable of taking. The first and most common action is the movement action. For a move, you're allowed to, from off the board, you can move onto the board by moving onto any of the spaces that are adjacent to the edge of the board. So, like this, that is a move onto the board. While on the board, you have to check the doorways on the tile you're on to see which ways you can move. So in the case of this tile, there's a doorway that faces onto this next tile off it, and 2 doorways that face off of the board. So while on that tile, those are the 3 directions this player can move in. Now, while moving, whether you're moving onto the board or from a tile on the board to another tile on the board, if the tile you move onto also has a doorway that faces back towards the direction you came from, then you can keep moving for free. So I'm going to show you that right here as an example. If you were to, for instance, move onto this skull tile here, this skull tile has a doorway facing back off the board, so you could keep moving. And then, as you move through this doorway that the skull tile has facing towards the pink elephant also has a doorway facing back towards the skull tile, so again, you could keep moving, and this is all just one action. Now, this final move here, though, from the elephant to the blue rabbit, while the elephant had a door, so you could move on to the blue rabbit did not have a door back, so at that point you have to stop, and that is your total action. You get to keep moving in this way until either you make a move that didn't have a door facing backwards, and therefore that's the end of your action, or of course you get to your destination. For instance, if the pink elephant in this situation was the destination, that would be the end of your move. Now, the next ability you can do is you can rotate a tile. Now you can rotate any tile that is not occupied by either player, or you can rotate any tile that you occupy, even if your opponent is on it. As long as as long as the tile qualifies in one of those 2 ways, you can pick the tile up and you can rotate it to face any direction, and that takes 1 action to do. The next action you can do is you can play a friend card. Now the friend cards show you what set you have to have, which are 2 creatures and a terrain, the background, in order to play that card. Playing the card is an action. Playing the card will get you points based on what it says here. So for instance, in this case, this card gets you 1 point plus 1 more point for each card with the blue ocean background. This card has the blue ocean background, so it is immediately worth 2 points and will give you an extra point for every other card you play before the end of the game with a blue ocean background. It then also gives you an ability that some of which happen immediately, some of which you can use later. In this case, it's an immediate ability that allows you to move one of your pieces to a skullflower. The next action you can take is you can draw a card. And for drawing a card, there are 2 different ways to do that. You can draw a random card from the deck, from the top of the deck, in which case you don't know what it is, or you can draw one of the face-up cards that's out here in the display. If you do draw one of those, you immediately replace it from the top of the deck. And the last action you can take is to get rid of all the cards in the display, putting them on the bottom of the deck, and re-dealing 4 cards out to the display. Those are all the actions you can take. You can only take 3 actions on each of your turns. So let's take a few turns, and that way you'll be able to see how the game works. So starting with the red player, because they get to go first, the red player takes a quick look around the board and says, you know what, I got a good first turn right here. I got it set up. So I'm going to take one action to move on to this black blobby thing, one action to move on to the bear, which, by the way, since I moved from where there was a door, I could keep moving, but I don't want to because the bear is my destination. And the third action to play the card I just showed you. So again, that's worth 2 points right away, and possibly more if I can play more cards with ocean backgrounds. But at this point, the red player is done. They've taken 3 actions, so it is now the green player's turn. So the green player has a look at their cards and says, you know what, I'm going to take one move to move on to that same bear, and one move to move on to this three-eyed blue troll cat thing. And then my third move is to play this card here. Now that card, of course, required a bear, it required the blue ocean background, it required the troll cat thing. The bear has that blue ocean background, so we're able to play it. And this card is worth 1 point for each of this type of friend, which this card is, so this card is immediately worth 1 point and may accumulate more points if you can get a whole bunch of these. And for your next card played, it counts as already having that pink background even if you don't have it. But now that's all 3 actions for the green player, so it's the red player's turn to go again. So the red player takes a quick look around the board and sees what they might need, and isn't really happy with their options currently. So the red player decides, you know what, I'm going to draw some cards. So the red player decides they're going to draw a random card from here. Whoops. And then they're going to, for their second action, they're going to move this card, this piece off the board. And for the third action, they're going to move this piece. Let's see. They're going to move this piece off the board as well. They're going to fully pull back off the board. So back to the green player. The green player takes a look around at the board and decides, you know what, for my first action, I'm going to turn this tile. For my second action, now that I have a doorway facing in the correct direction, I'm going to move there. And for my third action, I'm going to take this piece here. I'm going to move this way. I can keep moving because there is a doorway facing backwards. This way, I can keep moving because there was a doorway facing backwards. And to the skull. Now I move completely across the board there, all with one move, and I've set this player up possibly for being able to play a card on their next turn with that big move. Now you go back and forth with these kinds of turns until a player has 7 cards collected in front of them. So, for instance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now, once you have 7 cards in front of you, you trigger the final round. On triggering the final round, everyone who hasn't gone after the first player goes until the last player, because everyone gets an even number of turns, an exact same number of turns as the first player. So if the first player triggers the final round in this game, the green player will still get 1 more turn. But if the green player triggers the final round, the red player does not get another turn because they already have their turn for this whole round. At the end of the final round, you count up the points based on your cards, and whoever has the most points wins the game of Dreamwell. Now that's how you play the basic version, and there's only a few adjustments you have to make to play the advanced version. So for the advanced version of the game, the first adjustment you need to make is you have to add in the advanced cards. You shuffle these advanced cards into the deck. The second alteration you need to make to the setup is half of the cards half of the tiles randomly chosen need to be flipped over to the advanced side. So here we go. You shuffle up the tiles just like you do for the basic version, and then you and the people you're playing against quickly throw out the randomized board. So here we go, with a nice quickly randomized board for the advanced version. The next difference is that you have a 6th action that you are allowed to take on your turn. That action is to flip a tile. Now,
the requirements for flipping a tile are the same as for turning a tile. You can only flip a tile if either it is unoccupied or if it is occupied by you. And in which case, you flip the chosen tile over to the other side, and you have to have the doorways facing the same way that they were facing before. I have found that if you flip the tile horizontally, based on the picture, rather than vertically, it will always be facing the same direction. Now, in this case, for flipping the tiles, it is very good to use the cheat sheet to remind you, first, what background each of these backgrounds shows you what background is on the other side of the card, and second, each of these creatures here shows you what creature is on the other side of the card. This is a little easier, though, because you'll notice that the creatures are always the same color. So the blue rabbit and the blue troll cat creature, for example, or the white skullflower and the white bear cat. This, though, is very useful to keep in front of you and reference it when you're trying to figure out which tiles you're going to need to use to get to your objectives. The final difference for the advanced game is that it's not 7 cards to trigger the final round, it's 10 cards to trigger the final round. Okay. The final version of play is the Nightmare version. And the only thing you have to add in for the Nightmare version is the Nightmare token. Now, the Nightmare token will start on one of the 4 center tiles, as chosen by the player to the right of the starting player. So in this case, since it's just a 2-player game, the green player would choose where they start. At the end of each turn, each player gets to move the Nightmare token 1 space. The Nightmare token cannot chain move like players can. It can't keep moving. It just moves 1 space, and it must be in a direction of a door. So you could choose to move it there, for instance, from here, or there. Now, you, as a player, may not move onto a space that the Nightmare token is on. If the Nightmare token moves onto a space you're on, it scares you out of the Dreamwell, and your pieces are moved from the board. The space that the Nightmare token is on may not be turned or flipped. So the Nightmare token can be added to either the basic or the advanced game, and it adds a more aggressive element to the game. So those are all the modes of Dreamwell. And there are lots of options there, lots of different ways to play. My personal favorite way to play is the advanced version without the Nightmare token, without using the Nightmare token. But my wife, Lynn, much prefers the basic version at the moment. She finds all of the trying to keep track of both what creature turns into what creature and what terrain turns into what terrain a little difficult to keep track of, and prefers not having to flip the tiles. So it's up to you to decide which is your favorite version, but for now, let's head back to the table. I'm going to tell you my thoughts and feelings on the game, I'm going to review it and rate it, and then we're going to get a second opinion from Lynn.
Okay, welcome back. So, that was how you play a basic game of Dreamwell, as well as an explanation of how to play the advanced version and how to add in the optional Nightmare rules. So, let's talk a little bit about Dreamwell. Now, I first played this game while I was doing the Sci-Fi and Fantasy beer and board game review video, which is on my channel at the Board Game Kaptain on YouTube. Captain is spelled with a K. Check that video out if you haven't already. Now, my friend Alex, while we were doing the Sci-Fi beer and board game review, was picking out some games from the shelves and thought this one looked interesting and wanted to try it. I hadn't even opened it yet. And we jumped right into the advanced version. And for Alex and I, we really liked the advanced version. It took a little while to get used to all the flipping and the mechanics that worked there, but we picked it up by the end of the game, and we really enjoyed it and really thought it was a good for a 2-player game. When you play it 2-player, it was a real good 1-beer game. Later, I played quite a few games of this with Lynn. And now Lynn tried both the basic version multiple times and the advanced version multiple times. And she wants to play the basic version more for longer before trying to go back into the advanced version. She has a little trouble keeping track of what's on both sides of the tile, as when you flip the tile, it not only changes the dream creature, but it also changes the background. And she has a little trouble keeping track of both those changes. So she would rather get used to the basic version or play the basic version than play the advanced version, which is fine. She still liked the basic version, and And that's good for her, and it's good that it has options. It has those options in it. At some point, she could, if she wants to, move on to playing the advanced version, or if she wants to, she can just play the basic version forever, and that's what's so great about options. So the gameplay, I think, is really cool. I love when you get to alter the board in the game. Not just a random board at the beginning, but you actually get to take actions in a game to change the board on the fly. And this game does that in two different ways, depending on whether you're playing the basic version or the advanced version, with the way you can spin tiles and the way you can flip tiles in the advanced version. And that is awesome. That is a lot of fun. Also, the way set collection works in this game, it kind of has set collection in two different ways. You have set collection in the classic way with the cards that you play, because often the cards will say, gain this many points for having these particular children in front of you. So you have to get the friend cards with those children on them to be able to get those points. But then it also has set collection in a different sort of way, with the way it works with moving around on the board to be able to play the cards to begin with. It's more of like a set control. You move the pieces on the board and you have to control those three particular things, the two dream creatures and the terrain, in order to play that card in the first place. And that is a very interesting mechanic. It's a little different than other games, other set collection games that I own. And this is definitely a great addition to my library, and a game that I know I'm going to play many times more. So now the thing is, rating it is tough. Sometimes you're between numbers, but I think I've come to a good rating for me for this game. I am giving this game 8 out of 10 stars, which is a very high rating. I love this game a lot. This game has earned a permanent place in my game library. I'm going to play it many times to come with many different people. I'm going to play it at 2 players. I'm going to play it at 4 players. I really like this game. I'm going to play all the different modes of it. If you like games that do set collecting mechanics and want to try out something that's set collecting but a little different, buy this game. If you like games that allow you to do board manipulation and change the board on the fly and are random different every time you play it for infinite replayability, buy this game. If you like the artwork, because the artwork is really different and special and unique, and you want to play a game with really nice, interesting artwork like this, buy this game. This is a really cool game. So again, 8 out of 10 stars. I really like this game. But let's get a second opinion. Lynn, how many stars out of 10 would you give to Dreamwell?
7.
So Lynn gave it 7. So she liked it not quite as much as I did, but this is still a 2 thumbs up review. We both gave positive reviews to this game. So there you have it. Do you have any comments for me? Comment down below if you have anything you think I could do better when doing my videos. If you have suggestions for future video topics or future reviews, or just want to comment on anything from the video, feel free to comment down below. And as always, if you would like to see more videos like this, please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, game on.